Internet, you are now listening to the FreeLunch podcast. This is your man, Premium Pete. Yeah, I'm calling from Brooklyn, and I'm letting you know that you're tuned right in. Don't go nowhere. The place to be is right here. Listen to the FreeLunch podcast. Cheers.
Yeah. Finna set the world on fire, take the block by storm, but I blow so cold. Nigga, warm your hands in the hell where the fire burn blue when the wheels turn slow in the steel. Pierce your skin, but it ain't so soft. I was raised in the Ville, I'm prepared for a war, and my shield so thorough that I don't need a hammer, and the heat don't scare me, man. This Alabama in the summer like a hammer to a runner, you gon' feel me. Go ahead, call me Green Tea Billy. Free Willy in your mind at the same damn time. You don't even wanna reach for the ceiling high. Listen, man, I'm the truth, won't lie. That's why I tell you, put your hand to the sky. We can live for the moment, screaming out omens like the roof on fire. Finna set the world 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 on fire.
Welcome to the FreeLunch podcast. We are a member of the New South Movement Podcast Network. I am your boy Tight, B Jeezy. What's happening?
And I was doing good until I got on this internet and read this headline about Janet Jackson.
What's that?
And Janet Jackson is splitting up from the guy that she just recently married.
Oh yeah, they were married for 5 years, 2 months. She trying to get 500 mil out of it. He a billionaire.
And I'm talking about on some savage level stuff. I'm so surprised. I used to have a big crush on Janet, but I got to change that up because Janet dangerous.
So she played the game very well. So she probably about to go back, and we may see on the episode of the rap game. Shout out to King Roscoe.
Man, it's crazy. But other than that, man, everything is good. Got another exciting FreeLunch podcast in store for the people. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited. How about you? What you got going on?
Been working all day. Beautiful outside. Looking outside the hotel room is beautiful outside, but looking forward to today's conversation. I think it'll be very insightful. There's a piece that I'm really intrigued about, and so hopefully we'll be able to touch on that as part of this interview. And today's guest is someone I think that can be very open, honest, quite frank, and special shout out to our third contributor, C. Frank Campbell, for making this happen, because C. Campbell is a contributor to the podcast, to the network, and through his connections and his relationships, we were able to kind of get today's guest.
C. Campbell is really linked into higher ed and what's going on college campuses, mainly the Auburn University campus, and so education is big, and it's been a hot button issue, man. Like with the new administration. And with the new nomination and the acceptance of the Secretary of Education and all that's been going on, it's like been in the headlines a lot. And so to have an expert in that particular topic, someone who really put in that time and can shed some light and inform our audience is great. So,
hold up, BG, hold up. I'm going to let you bring him in properly. I'm going to give him a hint, though. 2005 College Hill.
For sure. And that's for the 30 something, because I'm glad you put that in there, because I was gonna say that.
College Hill.
College Hill was a popular show. Man, we actually have College Hill night.
Cognac. Where my cognac?
Back in the day had a series. It was like a real world reality TV on college campuses, HBCU campuses across the country. And this particular one in 2005, that season was featuring Langston University in Oklahoma, And I'm going to tell you, I'll let you in on the secret. I didn't know. I'm familiar with HBCUs on this side of the country, the Southeast, the East Coast, talking about Tuskegee, Florida A&M, Howard, Hampton, and those things. But I was not aware that there was a HBCU located in Oklahoma.
Likewise.
Until College Hill 2005.
Yep. That's why I dropped the name. Yep, you're exactly right, BG.
And so the reason why we're talking about that is because today we've got the 16th president of Langston University. He took that seat back in 2012. And to go before that, though, I had an opportunity of meeting this gentleman when he was spending time as the dean of students at Auburn University. in Alabama. He was there about 2004 to 2005-ish, and I had the opportunity to meet him by way of Charles at that time. And I'm gonna say I was kind of taken aback then, because when you thought about our administration at Auburn, you had this image of older white guys. And at that time, he was 30 something, taking on this position as being the head of students. And he was cool, laid back, as you'll see in this interview. And it just really, inspired me to see that someone as young as he was, as energetic as he was, could be in this position and doing things that probably most people wouldn't have even anticipated seeing him do. He's a native of Louisiana, Baton Rouge to be exact, an alumni of Southern University. Shout out to the Jags one time. And he just had a list of accolades that have, from numerous stops. Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland as the director of multicultural affairs, an adjunct professor at Cleveland State, also an adjunct professor of education at Colorado State in Fort Collins, Colorado, where he was also an assistant director of Black Student Services. So, I mean, he's got much credibility when it comes to education. He's a family man. And what you're going to get today is someone who is well aware of education, how important education is to the community, and is now in the position to really push that thing forward and make his vision come into reality. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce to the FreeLunch podcast family the 16th president of Langston University, Dr. Kent J. Smith Jr. Dr. Smith, what's going on?
LU praying 16.
Man, Tight and BG, you guys are like the ultimate hype men, man. I need you in my corner.
We bring you out.
What's up, fellas, man? I appreciate you having me today. I'm excited. In all honesty, this is my first podcast I've ever done.
Glad you picked the right one for the first one.
You didn't know we were gonna drop that college chill on you, did you?
Oh man, I must admit, I kind of watched that myself back in 2005. Who would have known I'd be at Langston 7 years later?
Exactly. And want to say congratulations to Dr. Smith on the university celebrating 120 years this year. That is truly a milestone for sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Langston University has been just an incredible institution to so many for a very long time, and it's an honor to have the opportunity to serve the university and alumni and students and faculty and staff, to have had the opportunity to serve for the past 5 years.
And just look at that though, BG. It doesn't seem like there's been a number. I mean, if he's the 16th president over that longevity, the retention is pretty good. For a lot of us, the first time we heard about Langston University was from College Hill. If you were to describe Langston University and how it kind of sits in Oklahoma, how would you describe the feel and the campus layout of your beloved university?
First thing I'll tell you is it's certainly different today than what you saw on College Hill. Langston University, to me, first of all, it's not only the only HBCU in the state of Oklahoma, but Langston University is the most westward historically black college and university in the U.S. And so we have a huge draw of students from Texas and also from California. Believe it or not, those are our two largest feeder states for out-of-state students. But the environment, first of all, we have three campuses. We have the main undergraduate campus is in the town of Langston, which is approximately 40 miles north of Oklahoma City. We have two urban centers, one in the city of Oklahoma City and another in the city of Tulsa, both within the state of Oklahoma. But the university I would describe as sort of the quintessential college campus in the U.S. in terms of it's in the rural part of the state. But what's really neat about it is that when you come to Langston, literally that becomes your family. It's a beautiful campus in terms of settings. Unfortunately, when you go to visit some campuses throughout the U.S., they have dilapidated facilities and buildings. Langston does not have that. It's a beautiful place. When people get there, they go, wow, I really wasn't expecting it to be this beautiful place. And it's just a very unique environment. Langston is still small compared to sort of an Auburn University, a major entity. We have approximately 2,500 students, and so it's a place where you get a lot of hands-on attention. We don't have any class on any of our 3 campuses that has over 50 students in it. And those are professors teaching the class, not graduate assistants. You truly are getting a hands-on education. And the last piece I'll tell you about it is Langston University last year ranked as the 3rd most affordable university in the United States of America that has less than 5,000 students. You can come to Langston University, believe it or not. Now, this is not fees or room and board, but literally to take up to 18 credit hours for 1 semester. If you're an in-state student, you can do that for less than $2,000 for tuition. And that's just unheard of. So if you're looking for, if any of your participants are looking for a place that's affordable, that's high touch, high quality, a smaller institution where people are going to pay attention to you, where you won't be just a number, Langston University should be on that list for consideration if we have the academic program that you'd like to have.
How did you end up as the president at Langston?
You know, it's an interesting thing. I really was not looking for a job. I was the vice president for student affairs at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. Had been there 6.5 years. And out of the blue, I got a call from a search firm. And we talk about being at the right place at the right time. The same search firm that Ohio University used when I was hired away from Auburn and to Ohio University is the same search firm that Langston University hired to do their presidential search. And out of the blue one day, I get a call from the head of the search firm saying, hey, I'm in a taxi cab. I'm in Oklahoma. I'm headed to the airport. I just met with the search committee of a university called Langston University. Have you ever heard of it? I said, sure, I've heard of Langston University. Don't know much about it, but I've heard about it. He said, man, everything they're describing that they want to have in their next president, all I can think about is you. And he said, look, I'm about to get to the airport. I have a plane to catch. I'm going to call you on Monday. I want you to look it up online, and I need you to apply because all the materials are due by next Friday. I really think this could be an opportunity for you. Honestly, I wasn't looking for a job. I really wasn't thinking I was ready to be a president. And he called me on Monday. I said, I haven't looked. I'm not interested. I appreciate it. He called me every day for 4 days in a row and finally decided to apply on that last day. I think I applied an hour before the deadline. And then that was in November of 2011. And by January of 12, I had been announced as the president, the 16th president. So sometimes things are just meant to be, and the door opens, and it's just plain as day. And here I sit, I'll complete my 5th year in May, and there's no doubt in my mind that this is what God had for me. A whole new world has opened up, and I feel blessed to have this opportunity.
Follow-up question. Growing up in Louisiana, did you dream of becoming a president of a university?
Really, really good question. First of all, did I ever dream of being a president as a kid? Absolutely not. I never dreamt of working in higher education. So to begin with, both of my parents are graduates. Both of my parents are deceased, but they were graduates of Southern University. And so going to a historically black college and university, they said, look, you can go wherever you want to go for college, but if we don't help you pay for it, you're going to go to an HBCU. That's just all of my family members, with the exception of maybe 4 or 5 family members. All of them have graduated from Southern University. So I kind of knew I was going to go to Southern. That was the expectation. And both of my parents were educators. My mother was a high school French teacher and eventually became a guidance counselor. And my father was an elementary school teacher. So I tell people that education was in my blood. I got to college, majored in education, and graduated, taught middle and high school. But I also, during my senior year of college, my daughter was born. and I got married my senior year of college. So I needed some insurance, and I needed a salary. So when I graduated, I immediately went to teach, and I quickly found out my first salary as a school teacher in 92 was $18,200. Man, I thought I hit the jackpot. I thought I was rich and I have all this money. And what I quickly realized with a wife and child, I realized I had too much money left over every month and not enough paychecks. And so I worked a part-time job the entire time I was a school teacher. I worked at night and at a tuxedo shop, and that's a job I started when I was in 9th grade. So I worked that job all the way through high school, college, graduate school, everything. But to make a long story short, I taught middle and high school, and really, I can't even tell you why other than it was really the salary. I had a friend who majored in business who was working at a local bank. And the friend said, hey, my bank is hiring. And I said, oh, really? What do they start off at for manager trainee program? And the salary they started off with was $5,000 higher than I was making as a teacher. So I applied, and I got the job at the bank, and then I left education for a bit and got into banking and had success there. But ultimately, something was missing, and what was missing for me was getting back into education. And I eventually went to work on the master's degree at Southern, and then got hired at Southern in the Upward Bound program. And then literally, as I was working on my master's degree, my goal then was to eventually be a middle high school principal, because that's where you can make some money, and I knew I could feed my family and do well there. And as I was working on the master's degree, the director of the Upward Bound program, it just so happened that her husband worked on Southern's campus as a dean, and he was finishing up his doctorate at the time. And he said, my job in Upward Bound was to take the juniors and senior high school students and to take them on the college tours and to help them with applying to college and help them get accepted to universities. So he saw that I had a knack for working with the older high school students, and he said, you really seem to do well with the older students. I think you were student body president when you were in undergrad at Southern. I think you should consider a career in higher ed. And I said, man, I never thought about that. What does that take? He said, well, you're going to need a doctorate degree. I said, no, thank you. I appreciate it, but I'm not trying to hear a doctorate degree. Nobody in my family has a doctorate degree. How am I going to pay for that? And, man, he said, guess what? Colorado State University just started an exchange program with Southern. And he said, with your grades and if you do well on the GRE, I bet you could get them to pay for your degree. So, man, one thing led to another. I applied and got accepted, and, man, they offered me a full ride. And I kid you not, I made more money while I was in grad school. I quit my job, moved to Colorado for grad school, and did it full time. I made more money. It's a sad statement, but I made more money in grad school than I made as a school teacher. And so I packed up, moved to Colorado, and worked on my degree thinking at that time I would finish the doctorate and come right back to Southern and work at Southern for the rest of my career. About 2 to 3 months before I graduated at Colorado State, literally I had the vice president for student affairs there offered me a full-time job. And once I moved to Colorado, I've never lived in Louisiana since, not because I didn't want to go back. Jobs kept presenting themselves. So I went from Colorado, worked there for 3 years after I finished the doctorate, then went to Cleveland, Ohio. From there, went to Auburn. From Auburn, back to Ohio, and Ohio now in Oklahoma. And now I've been gone from Louisiana over 20 years. And that's sort of the span. So you never know where opportunities will come. And in all honesty, you never know what God has for you and what the real plan is. I just learned to obey and follow. But what I do believe is that if you do the right thing, you work hard, opportunities will come. But they also come when you least expect. So that's kind of my long-winded response to it, but hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely, and this is a podcast, so you can be long-winded. So
okay, man.
Absolutely. Now that you are the president at Langston University, which course curriculum do you find has been the most beneficial for you as the president and for your current role?
Wow. I'll be really honest with you. The best course curriculum is the curriculum of experience. The one where it's one thing to have book knowledge, but it's a totally different thing to have experimental knowledge and hands-on knowledge where you've been through some trials and tribulations, you've seen things that work, you've seen things that you think will not work, and most importantly, why. So much of leadership has to do with your perception, how you receive things, how you treat people, how you react to things, how you get up when you fall, how you recover from mistakes. And a lot of times curriculum, and I know it's not what some of your listeners may think about, but it's my honest answer. I think a lot of success has to do with some of the, what I would call just the intangibles that don't have a lot to do with just the book knowledge. And that might seem ironic coming from a university president, but I believe the best employees, the people who are likely to do well are not just those who have book knowledge, but people who have, we were talking about this earlier, but street knowledge, but also just, and when I say street knowledge, I'm not talking about being in the streets. I'm talking about boots on the ground where you actually have some experience that you bring to the table.
Dr. Smith, at 33, you are the Dean of Students at Auburn University. You take that post in 2004, and then fast forward about 8 years or so, 2012, you become the president of a historically black college in Langston University. What are the contrasts in those two experiences?
Wow. Really, really another good question, man. You guys are on it. I'm impressed. Ironically, and a lot of people would not believe this, but a lot of the experiences are similar in some ways, because while some people would say, well, historically black college and a large at a smaller school and a large predominantly white institution in the SEC, how could those have similarities? But actually there are similarities, because my role as president, I don't just deal with black people. First of all, we have white students, we have white staff members. I have to go and lobby the state legislature. I have to go and lobby Congress. When you're trying to raise money, you're not just trying to raise money for an HBCU from black people. And it's not a black-white thing, but people generally are people, especially when you're dealing with education. So the irony is, as a young person at Auburn, whether it's a black student, a white student, an Asian student, Hispanic student, I still have to gain credibility with the student. Even though I had a title, the way students work, the way faculty and staff work, the way administrators work, people don't just automatically trust you. They watch you for a while and they see what you're about, and you can say a bunch of things and you can say all the right things, but if what you do is contrary to what you're saying, regardless of who the student, administrator, or faculty member is, they're not going to believe in you and they're not going to follow what you're trying to do. So in a lot of ways, the experiences are similar, because in my book, people are people. At the end of the day, we all are after peace of mind. We want to be accepted. We want the ability to be who we are and have success. And I think too often we focus on differences rather than similarities. But the irony is, obviously, I was a different person at 33 than I am at 47. But even at 47, I'm still a young guy. Don't throw me out there just yet. Now, I'm not old. I'm young in terms of probably university president still. But the irony is that the experiences are similar in a lot of ways. Truly, the institutions operate differently because they are different. But the experiences with the people are very, very similar. Auburn University faculty, staff, and students and alumni love Auburn University. Langston University faculty, staff, students, and alumni love Langston University the same way. And so in those regards, they're very similar. What
would you say is the role and responsibilities of a president, and in your case, the president at Langston University?
Sure. Ultimately, my job is to be the chief visionary and cheerleader for the institution. Now that takes on, totally different looks and views on a given day. One of the things that I like about the presidency is no 2 days are alike. Literally, in 5 years that I've been a president, no 2 days have been alike. I'll give you an idea of what today was. Maybe that'll help. Let me kind of walk through the schedule. This morning I arrived at work at about 7:10. I've been out for the past 3 days out of state traveling. So at 7:10 I walk into the office. I did paperwork and returned some emails until about 8:30. From there, wound up meeting with a regional district manager of the company that operates our facilities and our dining hall. Met with him. He's a new executive with them. Met with him for about 2 hours. Trying to remember the schedule. From there, met with some of my direct reports, had one-on-one meetings, met with the student newspaper, did an interview with them, had a phone call with the state senator advocating for the university to not cut our budget. Today spoke with two alumni, had a student come in who had a complaint, and then had to hustle to make it home in time to do this interview so that we could talk. Tonight, anything is subject to break loose. Anything could happen on campus. Hopefully it'll be a peaceful night. I'll get some rest and go back at it tomorrow. And then from there, every day is just different. You could be doing some of anything. And then at Langston, we have 3 different campuses. So I'm dealing with entities in all 3 cities. I'm dealing with alumni worldwide. And so for me, it's not a monotonous job. And contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not a job where you're just sitting behind a desk barking orders every day. Say, okay, do this, do that. Answer this call. It's not like, at least to be successful in my book, you have to be able to get out and about and be amongst the people in order to lead. It doesn't happen from behind a desk.
How intimidating is it, though, to go from when you first found out about this job, you were like, no, you didn't want it. And then you become the president and you've got to take on those roles that you just laid out.
Mm-hmm. Very intimidating, man. I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, man, I applied for this job and I just knew I was going to get it. And, man, from day one, I knew I was going to be successful. No, man, it's intimidating because, do I believe in myself? Yes. Do I have self-confidence? Yes. But when it really sank in and I was a finalist, I'm down to one of 3 people. Like, man, would they really offer me this opportunity? And if they do, am I really ready to lead a university? And you do have to, at least I had those moments of doubt. And I'll tell you, after being 5 years in now, it probably took a good 3 years to really get my feet solidly planted where I felt like I was into a groove and understanding who's who. Here's how I work with faculty. Here's how I work with students. Here's how I work with alumni, community members. The way I operate today is very different from how I operated in year 1, in year 2. And it took a while, man. These are not easy jobs. They're just not. You don't make a whole lot of people happy. And part of the reason is most decisions that you ultimately make, there's a faction of people. First of all, it affects a lot of people. That's the first thing you quickly realize that, people hinge on your every word. They watch where you eat. They watch how you dress. You go to the grocery store. You're not just Kent Smith to them. You're the president. Even my oldest son, my 23-year-old son, who's a student at Langston, he's now a junior, but it took him a while to get used to people are watching. They make up stories about you, some of which are not true. And, it's just you become the talk of a lot of people and a mystery to people, and that takes a little getting used to. You see people staring at you. Oklahoma's a small place, so there's nowhere to really hide. And then leading the only HBCU, people know who you are, and it affects you. It affects your family, and it takes a lot of time to really understand that. But I don't know how somebody gets these jobs and just would tell you, oh, yeah, I was just so comfortable. I knew I had it from day one and everything was going to be okay. I'm not wired that way. Not when you think of all the lives of not only students but faculty and staff and alumni. You hold a lot of cards and it affects a lot.
Dr. Smith, you served as president the second term of President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any policies that directly affected HBCUs, particularly Langston University, in either a positive or negative way?
Sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and this is not very popular amongst, especially those at HBCUs, but there weren't a whole lot of things that came HBCU's way. I mean, some slight increased funding, but the truth is there's not a lot that came by way of the Obama administration to HBCUs. I like President Obama. Do I think he was good for our country? I do. I don't have anything bad to say about him, but when I think about HBCUs under his administration, I do not believe we were a focal point. And I'm not saying President Trump will make us a focal point. I can tell you I don't think President Obama ever invited HBCU presidents to the White House to meet with him. But just as President Clinton did not, just as President Bush did not. That's not a knock on President Obama. So I know so one of the policies that clearly hurt most of the HBCUs was the whole Pell Grant piece, where things were decreased for a lot of, and that affected a lot of students. And for HBCUs, that affected enrollment. And enrollment dropped. And a lot of people left with bills, and a lot of people left or did not attend college because of those things. Now, he did come back, and some of it was rectified, and he worked through it with his administration and his exec. So that's a good thing. And in fairness to President Obama, it's not as if he went to an HBCU. And quite frankly, he didn't have a lot of people in his inner circle who attended HBCU.
That's fair criticism.
I don't think for a second that President Trump wakes up in the morning saying, I'm an HBCU guy and I want to do something for HBCU. The major difference is President Trump has a few people in his inner circle who are HBCU graduates who have been talking to him about HBCUs. And so to me, that's where it came about. I don't think it was his idea that he woke up one morning and said, let me invite the presidents of HBCUs to come to the Oval Office. That was his inner circle advising him that this is a group that was important to them. And so we had an opportunity to go to the Oval Office and meet him briefly and advocate for HBCUs. And time will tell whether or not he values HBCUs by way of what he recommends in budget.
And this is something that I kind of mentioned in the opener that I'm very intrigued in. And this is actually something that BG and I even pre-show prepped. How did that process go?
The Thurgood Marshall College Fund, of which they represent the public historically black colleges and universities, they found an end with one of the senior staffers that I was talking about at the White House. And they started having conversations, and ultimately it went before the president, and he said, well, I'd like to meet with him. And so there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and we have to keep it quiet for a while because you have to send in all kinds of information, and you go through a governmental clearance just to be able to go and visit with the president. Did I ever in my wildest dreams think I'd ever be in the Oval Office? I did not. And for me, it was never a question in my mind of whether or not I should go and advocate on behalf of HBCUs. If you get an idea, whether or not you like President Trump's policies or Obama or whoever, the reality, I've been taught you respect the position. And the reality is President Trump is the president of the United States of America, the most powerful position, I would say, arguably, in the world. And you get an opportunity to go and do that. I was going to go and do it because part of my responsibility is to advocate for Langston University. And for us, over 40% of our annual budget comes from the federal government. So if you get to meet with the chief person in the federal government, you take that opportunity. And a lot of people wanted to debate, you have these sideline debates. Oh, I can't believe they're going to go and meet with the President of the United States, and I can't stand it. Okay, what's the worst thing that could happen from meeting with the President of the United States? He says something crazy and decides not to fund HBCU or recommend no funding, which is basically where we've been. Or just maybe you might hit it off with his administration, and all of a sudden you gain some traction, and you just might see some funding or some opportunity for increased federal grants or access and different things. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And I think 85 of the 105 HBCU presidents decided the same, to attend and to meet. And some of us took criticism from our alumni who felt that we shouldn't go and meet with the president.
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
Black Twitter was pretty rough on you, and you know about Twitter. At LU Press 16, Black Twitter was off the hook about the presidents going to the White House.
Oh, I know. But
I'm
going to be frank with you. Those same people, most of them haven't given a dime of their money to support an HBCU.
You're probably right, too.
And just being very real with you, the reality for most HBCUs is most of our alum do not give financially to the institution. And we wouldn't have to go and beg and do some of the things we have to do if our alumni were giving back for the institute, the very institution that's helped them to be successful in their lives. On average for HBCUs, less than 10% of alumni give in any capacity to their HBCU. That's national. And that's sad.
It threw me off a little bit to see the HBCU presidents, especially on the tail end of like Steve Harvey and the whole thing with him going to Trump Towers and Jim Brown. But I give it up because you actually got an opportunity to go and meet with him in the White House. Did you actually get a chance to see him and get a feel for his vibe?
To be honest with you, we went to the Oval Office and we were with him all of probably 15 minutes. He was nothing like you see on TV. Obviously, he has a big personality. But when you're around that many people with the president, he said HBCUs are important to him and his administration. We'll see over time. He said all the right things as he should, but time will tell. But it was, look, man, I grew up poor. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. Had two good parents. But the reality is, did I ever, in my wildest dreams, think I'd be in the Oval Office? No way.
Amen.
Never even a thought.
So he did go forward and he signed an executive order, and that executive order was specifically targeting HBCUs. But I think it's kind of gray for the general public as far as what that executive order really meant. Can you educate us a little bit on what that executive order really does?
Now, that's a great question because, when Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and all this was blowing up criticizing us once his executive order came out, first of all, a president's executive order cannot allocate funds. The president does not handle the budget. He makes recommendations. All an executive order is where he's saying this is something that's important to me as the president, and I'm urging Congress to make it a priority as well. And so we didn't go into it expecting that an executive order was going to mean increased funding for HBCU. So some people, they were critical of something that they didn't understand. But what we did when we met with his executive team and senior leaders, we are asking for an increase over time of $20 billion to come to the HBCUs in the United States of America. And that's what we're going to work with Congress on so that gradually we see an increase for HBCUs. And what we have to do a better job of is being united, regardless of the type of HBCU, whether it's public, private, whether it's large or small, and most of us are small. We have to be united in advocating on the Hill. And that was our first attempt to move forward together and collectively to do that. And I still think today that was the right thing to do, to go.
Prior to going to this meeting, did the 85 that attended get together and come up with an agenda, or was this more of an opportunity for the president to become familiar with HBCUs?
Those of us who are a part of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, we worked together. We met before the visit in D.C. the day before, and we talked about what we wanted our priorities to be. And that's about 48 of us that got together. And then simultaneously, the institutions that are represented by the United Negro College Fund, which are the private HBCUs, they met. And so by the time we got to the White House, we had our talking points of, here are the 2 to 3 things that we're advocating for on behalf of all historically black colleges and universities.
After the meeting, what was the response that you received from your board of directors? Did they agree with you going, or were they disappointed that you were one of the 85?
My board was happy that I went. The first thing you learn as a senior administrator on the college campus is you don't make a move without your boss knowing about it. You know, as a rule of thumb, and what I say to all of our vice presidents, the only thing that I ask is there should be no surprises. So my board knew I was going before I went. My campus knew I was going before I went. I sent out an email and I communicated with our faculty, staff, students, and alumni, letting them know that not only I was going, but why I was going. Because a lot of people don't understand how critical the federal government really is for not only public institutions, but most research institutions as well. There are a lot of dollars that, and again, for us, while people want to talk about the state budget, for us, less than 18% of our budget comes from the state of Oklahoma. But over 40% of our budget that we generate comes from the federal government. The federal government, with all due respect to state government in Oklahoma, the federal government is far more important, dollars-wise, to Langston University than the state of Oklahoma, which to me, you figure an 80 for us, an $82 million budget, and almost half of that comes from the federal government. Mm-hmm. Would you want to meet with the CEO of the entity that's giving you almost half of your budget?
Absolutely.
And when you put it in those terms, to me, it's a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think you definitely had to go, and a lot of optimism came out of that because you've got this new president who's seeming to put your institution and as well as the other president's institutions on the radar as far as making sure that they have what they need. And then not too long after that, he just recently released the budget, and the one report saying that the overall federal education budget is going to be cut by about 13%, and then he did make the statement that the $492 million for HBCUs and minority institutions, that wouldn't be touched, so that would remain in place. But there was some mention of like the Pell Grant continuing to be affected, and there'll be a cutting out of some of the other discretionary money that was typically or historically placed as far as financial support for those institutions. Does this report and the budget dim some of that optimism for you as a president, or?
No, because to be honest with you, I don't think I can't speak for all HBCU presidents, all the 85 who were there, but I can tell you the ones I'm close with, and certainly the ones that I met with, none of us went into this blindly thinking, that's the president. President Trump wakes up thinking about HBCUs and, everything is coming our way and all these other institutions, we're going to get their money and some everybody else. But you can't tell me that with some of the proposal that he made where he's suggesting wiping out total department and like you said, cutting some of the Department of Education, and yet HBCUs he's recommending no cut. While some may not see that as a win, you can't tell me that our visit didn't have an impact on that. Because I believe, I'll put it to you this way, I believe that if we had not have gone and had the meeting, I think we probably would have been recommended for a cut. How easy would that have been to recommend it? So, I think I feel like I had realistic expectations going into it. So while I didn't get overly excited because, wow, we got to meet with the president and I think all this will happen, I'm also not equally dim based on what's happened. I'm trying to stay level in terms of expectations and the reality of what we're dealing with.
Does it bother you at the criticism you receive from those critics, especially those critics that are influential in the Black community?
No, man, and let me tell you why. First of all, the number one thing that I've learned, if I had to pick one of the best things that's happened to me as a result of being an administrator in higher education, whether it's a young administrator on a predominantly white campus or being a president of an HBCU, with those jobs comes criticism. There's always a faction of people who have something to say about what you ought to be doing, why you had to do it this way, or why didn't you do it another way. And for me, you quickly learn to have thick skin. Ultimately, I sleep at night because I feel like I'm doing what's best for the entities that I represent. And so, truth be told, I think if some of those same people had gotten an invitation to meet with the president in the Oval Office, some of those same people would have been right there in the Oval Office meeting with the president. It's easy to say what you will or won't do when it's not real, or to criticize someone when you're not in their shoes. There's a whole lot of things I used to say when I was a vice president, or I think, why would my president do that? That doesn't make sense. When I become a president, I'm going to do such and such. And one day, all of a sudden, you sit in the chair, wow, and the stuff he was saying and doing made a whole lot of sense because I didn't know the stuff that he was faced with. I just had my limited view of my experience. But all of a sudden, when I gained a different lens, like I began to understand why he did some of the things that he did. Mm-hmm. And so my point is, some of the people who does it bother me? No, because my view of it is that some of the people, they just don't have a lens to understand what's really at play. Mm-hmm. They're not faced with cutting budgets, laying people off, wondering why your alums are not giving financially as a whole to the very institution that's helped them. They don't have to, most of them don't have to meet with a student who's trying to figure out how am I going to pay my bill to stay in college and at the same time help my family at home. When you don't have to deal with some of that stuff day in and day out, you don't understand the pressures that an administrator is faced with. So with all due respect to them, going to meet with the President of the United States is not the biggest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Where are those same people in encouraging corporate America to give to HBCUs? It's easy to be critical, but what are you doing to advocate for them or for us? So, no, I don't. Honestly, man, I look at some of that stuff, and a lot of it goes right out of the window because those same people not doing a whole lot to help HBCUs to begin with.
Would you have taken the trip had this been President-elect Trump and the meeting was held at Trump Tower?
I would think the answer is going to be the same. I think, yes, I probably would have.
You see, I guess we've had this debate.
Oh, no, I see what you're talking about, but at the end of the day, man, it's all about influence. Make no mistake that this stuff is political. And in some regards, one call from a president of the United States to the right person in D.C., and all of a sudden you have a connection that you couldn't even get before. So it's all about relationships. And again, my view is, what's the worst thing that could happen? I know people were critical of Steve Harvey and Jim Brown, some of these other people who went and I don't have that criticism of them. I actually agree with them. You get a call from the president-elect to meet and talk about the plight of, you really think Steve Harvey doesn't care about black people? He grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, grew up hard. This brother has made it beyond where a lot of us can't even dream about doing. And if he gets the right connection with the President of the United States, whether he's elect or not, that can help in a lot of ways. This podcast, okay? So people might tell you, you shouldn't have President Trump on there, on your podcast. But if you had an opportunity to have, whether he's president-elect or the president, man, a lot more people going to tune in. Whether they're mad or not, the reality is you then are going to have a relationship with him that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And to me, I don't see how that can hurt your podcast, hurt you personally, or black folks for that matter. Because people want to say, oh, it's just a photo op. Okay, well, you really don't know. We're not going to come out and tell you everything we talked about, because some of this is politics. And people don't understand how our government really works. So people trying to figure out, well, how did he get elected? The truth is the polling showed he was going to win. But we didn't want to believe that because we thought there's no way people going to go out and vote for him.
Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
Most of us, me included, man, we just thought Hillary was the next president. But the polling was saying something different. And we couldn't figure out why was he saying all this stuff that was crazy to us, but it was polling very well. And his stock just kept going up and up. Look, Trump is not a dumb man. You don't become a billionaire and do some of the things he's done by being dumb. He's intelligent. And he played it all the way to the White House.
Understand the consumer. He does understand the consumer.
That's exactly right. He's given them. People went out and voted for him. It's a lot of people who wanted something different. They may not agree with everything, but the truth is they're tired of these politicians who say exactly what we want to hear and do the opposite, and everything's staying the same. Right or wrong, he has shook up Washington. His own party doesn't know what to do sometimes. All I'm saying, guys, it's easy to be critical, and we have to be careful as humans on who we criticize. We become that type of society, but the truth is a lot of us criticize things we don't even know about. We get on Twitter, we get on social media, we think we understand an issue, and in a lot of cases, we haven't done our homework. We believe what people telling us, take it at face value, and we go out saying stuff that a lot of times we really don't even know about.
Doc, I'm glad you got an opportunity to get in the White House because that gives me an opportunity to talk to somebody that actually was in that thing. So I feel like I'm getting closer to glory.
And I feel, but brother Kid, I feel like you being able to get some stuff off your chest and being able to use this platform because you really are sharing, in my opinion, some truths, you know. And what I mean, I kind of connect and agree with a lot of what you're saying.
I thought long and hard about this, man, and I'm telling you, if you were to talk with just about any president of a university or CEO of a company, you just can't be successful if you're trying to be popular. And ultimately, you have to lead, and you have to do what's right for the entity. And every day when I have decisions to make, even ones that I know will not be popular, I ask myself, is this the right thing to do for Langston University and for the job that I'm tasked with? And ultimately, even when I make the wrong decision and I look back on it and I would do something different, I still slept good at night because with the information I had available to me at that time, I did what I thought was right. And you don't always get it right, but when you don't get it right, you admit your mistake, you learn from it, and you just don't repeat it. And you move on.
We live in this age of Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. That's where you find a lot of the criticisms at. And you've been in this game for a long time. So how have you seen social media help or hinder the college experience for students, administration, etc.?
Sure. In a lot of ways, it's really been helpful because the good news about today's students, they'll tell you everything that's going on in their world. All you have to do is tune in. You can find out the latest anything by reading. So in a way, the world has become much more connected. The way that it's actually hindered the social skills of a lot of students. Where today, for today's students, a lot of them, most of them, getting on Facebook or social media and communicating with an administrator, that's the same thing as having a face-to-face meeting to them with an administrator. And the unfortunate part is a lot of them are missing out on the art of looking somebody in the eye, shaking their hand, having a face-to-face conversation. And if they're not careful, while that's certainly happening on campuses for college students, that's not really how the work world works. And in the professional world, now employers, they want people who have not only great grades, but who have the social skills, who can function well in teams. And I find that a lot of students are missing out on those soft skills as a result of not just social media, but, we're in an age where people think they know everything. And they take a lot of what they read on social media and they just think it's true. And a lot of that stuff is just pure hyperbole. And you can create this, what I call the virtual youth on social media, where you paint a picture of what you want people to believe about you. And a lot of times we forget. People, you can make yourself look a certain way. You ever saw somebody's pic on social media, and then when you meet them in person, like, is that the same person?
Absolutely.
You ever had that happen?
Absolutely.
Or you read their words on social media, but when you meet them, it's not the same. We live in this weird world where it's created this false illusion of grandeur about people. And most of it is just make-believe. And a lot of our young people don't realize that yet. So it has positives and it has negatives. I mean, now I can do a webinar with my alumni and virtual webinar with them where we can see each other and communicate and talk. So in a lot of ways, it's been great. We can send out a message now that goes out to thousands of people, and we know who read it, who didn't. We know how to market to people. There are so many positives, but there's some negatives too. And I just think we have to be honest with young people about the good and the bad when it comes to social media.
Out of curiosity, since you've been president, have you received any funding from the Tom Joyner Foundation as part of their School of the Month?
Yeah, we sure have. In fact, 2 years ago, we were Tom Joyner School of the Month. And actually, I have to give Tom Joyner a lot of credit. He has supported HBCUs for a long time, as being a Tuskegee grad himself. But Langston has been a part of his foundation for at least, I think, 15 years or so, at least 10 to 15 years. But this coming October, I don't know if I'm supposed to announce that publicly. I guess I can. Will be the School of the Month in October for the Tom Joyner Foundation, where last time I think we saw $60,000 to $80,000 come to the university as a result of being School of the Month.
Oh wow!
So absolutely.
Oh wow! Oh wow! That's pretty impressive.
Recently, there was a report of the alt-right leader, white supremacist Richard Spencer, making an appearance at Auburn University. He's been very controversial over the last several months for some of his statements, neo-Nazi-like statements. Then a few months ago, we had the situation with David Duke, who was running for political office, made an appearance at Xavier University in Louisiana, and that raised a lot of protests from the students there, as David Duke was a former Ku Klux Klan leader.
I'm familiar with him. I'm from Louisiana, so I know,
all about it. Exactly.
In fact, I'm familiar with David Duke.
There's this thing with education to where you want your institution to be this summit for educational discourse where people come in and you might have different opinions, and you have this forum where you can discuss it and people learn from it. Is there a thin line between that versus having, entities come onto your campus that are, strictly promoting hate and discord amongst people and your students?
There is. There's a very fine line. I admit that, but I can tell you I'm an educational, what I would say, purist. The nature of universities as to the way they were designed, they are designed to create discourse, to debate issues. And unfortunately, what the way most people want it to work, they want you to have people that they agree with. It's not okay if you have somebody who thinks differently from them. And the truth is, higher education early on was not designed for everybody to go to college. Now, I don't want to get into Du Bois versus Booker T, but the reality of higher education is that we're supposed to be able to debate issues. And too often, and this Trump thing is the same way. It's just when we get mad at somebody, we want to throw their rights out of the window. If we don't like what they have to say, most people say, okay, I'm not going to deal with them. I hate them. I can't stand them. I want no part. Well, my thing is, being an educational entity, even though I don't agree with a lot of the things that President Trump says or may do, I believe that sitting with him and trying to understand or hearing from him and listening to his words are important for me to try to understand his view of the world. Most of us we don't take the time to empathize, to learn. What's his background? He's thinking the way he's thinking for a reason. And the way you can influence change is when you really begin to understand where a person is coming from. You don't have to agree with it, but the mistake a lot of us make is we don't choose the seeking of knowledge. We get mad and we shut it off. And higher education is supposed to be designed to encourage. You should not be thinking the same when you graduate than you did when you entered as a freshman. And higher education done well, not to brainwash you or change your mind, but to expose you to the differences of thought. That's why if you're an engineering major, you take general education courses. You're going to take a psych course. You're going to take intro. You're going to take humanities, an art course. It's supposed to make you well-rounded. And so many people have lost sight of the purpose of higher education or never understood it to begin with, that we can't even debate it anymore. We can't bring somebody on campus who thinks differently. But there is a thin line. I will admit that. But the problem is, who gets to pick and choose what that line is that you can't cross? And if you're a public institution, the same thing you would provide for someone you like, legally you're supposed to provide it for somebody who thinks differently from you. That's what the public fails to understand.
I got one last one. As we opened up this episode, Dr. Smith, we talked about your institution being 120 years old, and the majority of historically black colleges and universities have been around for a long time. Just given the historical context of why those schools were founded and the social situations that surrounded their founding, in 2017, what would you say is the role of those institutions?
I don't think the role has changed. It's evolved, but ultimately, for a lot of HBCUs, it was about providing an opportunity for those who were disenfranchised, not even disenfranchised, not given an opportunity, period. And I don't think we're totally different today. When you look at a lot of the students who are attending HBCUs, a select number of them would not be in college, even today, if it were not for HBCUs. HBCUs are still making a way for some who would not have an opportunity to go, if it were not for them. There's some others who clearly, can go anywhere they want to go, and they're choosing HBCUs. But in many respects, I think the mission is very similar today. It's to provide a quality education to some who are disenfranchised and not provided equal opportunity. We don't have equal opportunity, true equal opportunity in America. Everybody doesn't start at the same starting line, but yet we're expecting kids to do the same on ACT score, SAT, and people say, oh, well, I did better in high school. Well, how do you compare a kid that's going to a poor school district that doesn't even have textbooks to one that has 5 computer labs in their high school or giving laptops to them while they're in high school? They're not going to do the same in all likelihood on the ACT. But yet, when you fill out that entry or application, the expectation is they're being compared as if they're the same, and they're just not. And to me, while it's not all of our students, that's where some HBCUs come on.
Final question. BET, MTV, TV One, Oprah Network come to you and say, 2017, we want to have College Hill 2017 at Langston University. Do you sign off?
Oh, I have that question. I've been asked that. We've had networks call, and it's 2 letters, N-O.
Why is it N-O?
I can tell you, this president will never sign off on a reality show for the university.
Have they really approached you?
Oh yeah, well we've been approached, and I won't name the shows, but I've had 2 to call since I've been here.
And was it to follow someone on campus, or was it to have a 2017?
Well, this wasn't 17, but the one was a network where it came out with universities. Langston could have been one of those. No way. Here's the thing: it's not like they're gonna put a show on, an episode on that's about this young man from a certain part of Oklahoma that's from a poor part of Oklahoma, and both of his parents died, and he goes to college and makes straight A's, and now he's going to apply to medical school. Man, that's not what people are going to watch. So they're going to tell you, oh, we want to make the school look good, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is they want to do what sells, which is going to make the audience watch. You know, the reason people watching some of these shows they're watching is they like math. That's what sells.
What were they trying to sell as far as what they wanted the show to represent? Just out of curiosity.
What they approached me with?
Yeah, what did they approach you with? What was the...
We want to do a reality show to show the day in the life of a Langston University student.
And did they know the student? Did they have someone in mind, or was it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, they'll tell you, we just want to come and we start filming and we see where it goes. I don't think so. because you know how that works. They're going to find the craziest thing they can, and all of a sudden, like, how did I get here? As the president, your board is saying, why would you let this happen? Especially if College Hill wasn't favorable to Langston in Langston's eyes, not in the board's eyes. Now, to some of the students or some other people, they're like, oh, it was live, it was off the hook, and blah, blah, blah. But
lit.
From a president's eyes, yeah, that's right. It was lit. That's what they say now. But the reality is, from an administrator's point of view, I can tell you from my point of view, that's not how I want our campus to be represented.
So you sign off, BG? Do you sign off, BG?
No, man, because once you sign off, you lose control. You lose control of everything you represent. Like he said, how did I get here?
See, no. See, Black Twitter, they mad now because you go to the White House to see Trump, but you won't allow the BET to come film on campus. What's up with that, press? LU press 16.
That's exactly right.
Going forward, Doc, well, what's the outlook for Langston University?
For us, we want to continue to grow. Our goal is to go from 2,500 to 4,000 students. And quite frankly, we want to continue to project the university nationally to get on a national stage to where Langston is still a well-kept secret. There are a lot of great things that have been happening at this university for a very long time. And as we're starting to market the university and brand the university in new ways on a national stage, and just tell the Langston story in a different way, and that's what we're moving towards.
And you gotta do that in a 21st century way, and you're doing that by even having the interview on a podcast versus any other means. So we want to say thank you for your time and just for your willingness to come on our show.
Please, man, I thank you for having me. It's my honor, and I want to say to you guys, I really appreciate you doing your homework, man. It's a lot of people don't realize what it takes to pull something like this off, but it's obvious to me. You guys didn't just wake up this morning and decide to do this. You spent a lot of time studying Langston and some of these larger issues, And I applaud you for what you're doing. That's a big deal.
Appreciate it. And tell Roland Martin he ain't got nothing on FreeLunch podcast.
Will do, man.
We want to say, congratulations on all your moves that you've made. Congratulations on being the president. Congratulations for, like I said, 120 years. Wishing Langston University many more. Before you get out of here, let the people know how they can connect to Langston University for all those prospective parents and prospective students out there, as well as how they can connect with you.
That's perfect. First of all, Langston University, www.langston.edu. Check us out on the web. For me on Twitter, LUPrez, PREZ 16. I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to find, Kent Smith Jr. I'm on Instagram as well, LUPrez 16. And overall, I can be reached at Langston University, but love to, if you have a high schooler or even elementary school person, love to talk about all things Langston University, but most importantly, about education and higher education, because it's really important for us in our community. Education is the great equalizer, and I just want us to really encourage our young people to not only graduate from high school, but certainly to continue on in college and perhaps graduate school as well.
Really appreciate you. Gosa, great interview.
We talked to somebody that went to the White House. That might be a first for me, man.
Hey, no, it ain't the first. It ain't the first. I've been to the White House now. I've been to the White House.
Oh, man. Did you meet the president? You kind of talked to the president, but we got a tad bit closer today. We talked to somebody that talked to the president.
Hey, but you know what I like about it? He honest and open. Honest, open, forthcoming, didn't shy away from what I would consider the tough questions. And he answered a lot of questions that we want to know. What's going on behind them doors? What are y'all in there doing?
I meant to ask Doc why he let Kellyanne Conway be up on that couch like that, but I forgot. I forgot about that part. But yeah, he could have very easily played the fifth on us and gave us a no comment. But he was very candid and open about it, and really just kind of giving us that insight on what it was like, man. And to be in the White House, you go,
Absolutely.
you go, like he said, you go. Because you don't want to leave any room for them to be like, well, they didn't show up, so we just going to cut the whole thing totally. So you go, but you be realistic about it the whole time and not expect no magic tricks and no shit like that. But
hey, I've been an advocate for going since day one. I've been an advocate.
I ain't gonna lie. You have been an advocate for that. I have not been so much an advocate, especially when them boys were just going to Trump Tower.
Which is why, and I wanted to ask him because I see both perspectives saying, does it make a difference if it's at Trump Towers versus at the Oval Office? And so I wanted to get his perspective. Me personally, regardless of where the meeting was being held, I would have gone simply out of respect for the position.
I would have gone for the food and the drinks.
Man,
ain't expecting no miracles. I'm just going for the food, the drinks, and the access.
You remember that 2006 College Hill, BG? Cognac?
Man, really, my first introduction to Langston was watching that BET College Hill stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To a degree, I mean, that show, even though it might not have been taken in the best taste of the president and the trustees, it did to a degree raise awareness of that institution for people that
absolutely
had a clue. So
absolutely, which is
the Kent Smith Jr. and the Langston University Lions.
The Lions. I had to ask that. I wanted to know. I say, would he allow BET, TV One, MTV host a 2017 College Hill? And you heard it here first, folks. The answer was N-O.
Hey, it ain't say. You might well go ahead and sign your resignation papers.
Let's get out of it. Man, I enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed that conversation. You can tell when I get excited, BG. When I get excited, I'm butting in, jumping over questions.
Over again.
Good note. I apologize. It ain't the bed.
It ain't textbook.
It ain't textbook, but I'm excited. I be ready to pounce like a Langston University lion.
This is what we do, man. Raw and that stuff. But this has been another episode of the Free Lunch Podcast, a member of the New South Movement Podcast Network. Check for us, www.newsouthnet.com. Also available on iTunes and SoundCloud. Just search New South one word and you'll find us, Free Lunch Podcast, as well as the whole family of podcasts. We are the South's hottest podcast network, so check for us. I'm BG the 27 Kid on Instagram. Hit me up, BG_DA27KID.
And I am tight_ on Instagram. Follow me. We out of here. Peace.
Every time I come around these niggas, sorry. Finna set the world on fire. 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 Finna set the world on fire.